Hello, fellow gamers, and welcome to the Video Gamers Podcast. There's something about the magic and wonder of discovering video games as a kid. Our first RPG, the first time you get to play with friends, sharing a controller, or taking turns trying to beat a boss. Gaming has transformed over the years, but the childlike wonder of experiencing these fantasy worlds never fades. On today's episode, we're taking a trip down memory lane and discussing our most memorable childhood games. The ones that stand out to us the most, the ones that shaped our love of gaming. But before we get to that, some introductions are in order. I am your host, Josh, and joining me, he's the youngest host, so he'll probably bring up growing up with like the Xbox 360 and the PS4 or something. It's Ryan.
Everybody listening to that intro, if you think it's weird, think of how I feel listening to that, because that totally threw me off. I'm like, whoa, what are we, NPR now? What the heck is going on here?
I gotta every now and then I gotta just mix it up, man.
Keep us on our toes, man. I love it.
I really hope that like thousands of people like look down at their phone and we're like, what the heck is this? Like, did I click on the wrong thing?
Well, don't worry.
Man.
I know I'm younger, but I got some OG bangers. So.
I have faith in you, Ryan. That was more just a joke that it's like, there's going to be listeners where they're like, yeah, God of War on the PS4, and it's like, oh no,
yep.
Oh no. And joining us, a man with a true appreciation of the finer points of nostalgia, a man who used to dominate the arcades and knows what an Atari is. It's John.
Dominate is a strong word. I survived the arcades. I don't think at any point I felt dominant. But.
I don't think people realize the amount of like swagger and ego that existed in like the arcade days, man. That one guy that was just wrecking a machine or made it to a super like far point in a game or was like near the end level or something like that. Like, dude, those guys were a sight to behold.
Dude,
man.
they're like the OG like Twitch streamers. Like people would stand there and watch them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it only really existed, or I shouldn't say only, but primarily existed in fighting games. There are certain games that were created back in the arcade quarter gobbler days that were just designed to make you fail. Yeah. Like, one of the proudest things I did with my old company was we turned our break room into like a little arcade, and we bought like all these snacks and just kind of fed people for free. But we bought arcade cabinets because it was always my dream to own an arcade. And one of them that we bought was the X-Men arcade game, that old like 4-player X-Men arcade game. Dude, the end game of that is impossible. It would cost you like $20 to $30 in quarters to actually beat it. It's just spamming you with all the bosses over and over again. Like there'd be no way to get through that without dying.
Oh, these things were absolutely intended to just gobble up quarters. Dragon's Lair, the famous cartoon-looking game from I think the mid-'80s, maybe late '80s. The whole premise of that game was you had to just tap a direction on the controller and hope that it was like the right decision. So it's like you had a 50-50 chance of being wrong, and if you were wrong, your guy would die, and then you'd have to put in another quarter. And then I was just like, this is the most like... we talk about microtransactions, man. Microtransactions have been around since like gaming started, man.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah, this is not anything. Guys, okay, look, I know as the elder statesman, the OG gamer of this bunch, that maybe, a nostalgia episode hits a little bit different for us. But on today's episode, we are going to be talking about the childhood games that we remember the most, the games that formed our childhood, the games that when you go, what does little kid Josh remember about gaming? What games just instantly come to mind and why? Like, that's the stuff we're going to be talking about today, man. And I made this list and I instantly got excited and I was like, I want to play all of these games again.
Right.
Fully understanding that these games probably suck.
Yeah.
in today's gaming world, but like, man, they were just at the time, they were the most mind-blowing things that, we had ever seen or experienced or remember with like our friends or your parents or something like that, man. So we are taking a trip into our childhood and the games that we just are the most memorable games that we grew up with. And I am super excited to talk about these. But guys, we got to thank somebody, man. And dude, I freaking love this because this guy was in the Halo community night that we had, just having a blast, chatting away with people. I mean, several times made me absolutely just crack up. But a huge shout out to Bengalicious for signing up for rare status and helping support this podcast, man. There's very little that like gives me joy of like somebody joining into the community and then realizing like, I missed this, man. I missed playing games with people. I missed hopping into like a competitive game and just having a blast with my friends, or just joining our Discord and like talking to people and realizing like, this place is great.
Yeah.
And then they kind of go like, wow, like I feel like I want to like support this, man, because this actually is something special. So there's that little extra something where it's like, somebody has a great time, they have a great conversation, and then they're like, let me support this, man. I want more of this in the world. So thank you, Bengalicious, for supporting this show and for signing up, man. Yeah. So all right, guys, let's get into this, man. John, let's start with you, man, on this one. We're just going to be going. This is very informal. It's more just, what games do you remember? Why did they stand out to you? What about, childhood John made you remember this game or something like that? So what do you got for us, John? What's the first one that comes to mind for you?
So the first one that comes to mind, we kind of like briefly touched on it here, but the arcade experience specifically with fighting games is like the quintessential arcade experience for me. When I think about like some of the most impactful moments in gaming I've ever had, it was literally that social experience of meeting people in the arcade, putting your quarter on the screen and waiting for your turn. And although there's a lot of games that I could put into this category, the one that really stands out to me the most is actually Mortal Kombat. My grandma, as a like treat from picking me up from the after school playground in elementary school, used to be like going to Pizza Hut and getting a personal pan pizza and giving me a couple of bucks and quarters to play Mortal Kombat. And before Mortal Kombat, it was Street Fighter or something along those lines. And I love Street Fighter, still love Street Fighter. But there was just something about that like enhanced digitization of like real people on screen, plus the blood and the fatalities that really hooked me. I mean, that cemented a love for fighting games that exists for me through this day.
We kind of mentioned it, but like, everybody in the world knows what Twitch is, content creators, streaming, watching people play games and stuff like that. What people don't understand about the arcades was, and you mentioned this, John, that was the original, like, you had a crowd, and I'm talking like 20 to 30 people crammed 3 and 4 layers deep, like watching the screen of this arcade machine to watch these two guys like just face down and see who was the better player. You had a line behind player 1 and player 2, which again, like you said, was the people that put the quarters up on the machines, and you knew which quarter was yours, and everybody went in turn. Nobody broke line or anything like that. But like, there was magic there, dude. It was having a live audience. Like, people would cheer. They would be like, oh, when they saw some nasty combo. I will never forget seeing my first fatality. Like, Mortal Kombat fatality, to this day, I remembered it was Sub-Zero. It was the freeze. He rips the dude's spine out and holds it up. Yep. And like, do you know how long ago that was, man? Like,
did that just happen?
Decades ago. And I still remember it like it was yesterday, because everybody was just like, oh, whoa. And it, like, dude, there was an energy, there was a vibe to the arcades. Look, I get it.
It was the original You Got Served.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, where it was like, oh man, you got stomped, bro.
Yeah. And it was just, but it was cool too. Gamers have usually, like back then, were cool because you were together. It wasn't like, this dude wasn't like berating his opponent and talking trash. It was like this,
maybe
fist. I never witnessed that, but like a fist bump or like a high five or something.
I'm imagining like, Josh in the 90s, uninstall, bro, uninstall.
Yeah.
No, that's such a good one because like growing up too, I played a lot of Mortal Kombat 2 because my good friend growing up across the street, a few houses down, his name was Tommy. Love you, bud. and he had a Mortal Kombat 2 cabinet in his garage.
Ooh.
And the amount of hours,
dream! What a dream!
And dude, it's Phoenix, Arizona, man. It was 118 degrees the other day, and we would go out there and we would just be soaked in sweat. But we were playing Mortal Kombat 2 because it was just so much fun. Like those stand-up cabinet games were just something else, especially in that time.
Yep. Oh, it was. I wish people could understand, and I know it's going to be like, oh, this is like, you know, a bunch of old guys talk. But if you lived or experienced the arcade days, and I'm talking the days before Dave and Buster's, and the only thing you got from playing these things were tickets. You know, like you actually got the entertainment of a game and beating a level and things like that, dude.
Throwing your name up on the high score.
Yeah. Oh man, if you got to put your initials in on something, that's really old school. I miss those days, man. I fear they're gone forever. You know, it's like try to do an arcade here and there, but they just aren't the same anymore, man.
Just not the same.
No.
Although we did get to experience at Game On Expo in Phoenix. We got to experience there's still a lot of energy in fighting game tournaments. It's just not as common. You can't like just go down to the local shop and watch people compete. But like going to those tournaments, you get a lot of the same energy, even more so.
We had fun watching the Street Fighter 6 tournament.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was awesome.
We got into it real fast, man. It was pretty cool to see.
And then I went and beat you right after. So.
And then I went and beat you, Ryan.
We're
Yes,
not
you
going to
did.
get through a conversation about arcades and Street Fighter without Ryan bringing this up, man. So that's all right, Ryan.
I got you, Josh.
Avenged
Thank
your
you, John.
death.
Thank you for humbling him, you know, where he needs to be. So, Ryan, what do you got, buddy? What's the first game that comes to mind for you on this?
So I'm going old school, and this one, for whatever reason, just stuck with me really, really hard. I don't know if it was just the look or the atmosphere, and you guys, I don't know if you remember this or even remember seeing it at all, but it's the 1990 Sega Genesis Batman game.
What?
Oh, interesting.
You may recognize it if you see it, but for whatever reason, I remember renting this from a little game store called Gamers by my house as a kid because we had a Sega Genesis. And I just thought it was the coolest, like darkest looking Batman game. And I loved Batman as a kid. And it just, for whatever reason, I have the most fondest memories. And it's one of my younger memories of playing video games. I remember it was so hard for me because I was a little kid and the boss fights were difficult. And I just loved the look of this game more than anything else. And it's vividly stamped in my brain.
Is this a Batman game based on the comic book or on one of the movies?
I think it was based on the movie.
I think it was based on the movie.
Yeah, it says it was inspired by Tim Burton's Batman film.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I never played that one. I did play the Batman Forever game.
Okay, that one.
Dude, I thought it was awesome, man. Like, I loved the movie. That was like peak campy comic book movie, but it was one of the first movies where you could games where you could play as any of the characters in the game. Like, it would unlock the ability to play like Riddler and Two-Face and stuff. But
This game released in 1990, but like you got to be a superhero, man.
Yeah.
Like that was part of it, is like that was not such a common thing back then, you know, to be able to be Batman in these games and like get his abilities or like get access to some of his vehicles in these stages and stuff like that, man.
Yep.
So there kind of was a magic to being like, I get to play as Batman.
This is so cool. I only have 3 buttons, but this is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. It's punch,
More than
kick,
enough.
and batarang, right? Like, oh man, I never played that game, and I had a Sega, so this is crazy to me because it was like I never heard of this.
Yep, there's gonna be a few of those, and I tried to with mine too. Obviously, there's the standards, and we'll hit some of those at the end. But I try to do ones I'm really fond of, but like aren't just the normal, huge, big, type games.
Yeah.
So,
well, I am going to go back before the days of graphics, guys.
Oh, gosh.
I know this is if you're over 40 like I am, then you probably remember these a little bit.
bust out your stone tablets.
I got super into these games, guys. So and I'm just going to call them the text-based games. So I don't know if you guys, most people have heard of Zork in some fashion or another. They know the name Zork, like what is this? But there was a series of games where it was literally 100% text-based. Zork is probably the most famous one. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was another one that was very popular because the books were popular back then. There was a really old one called Wishbringer that I remember came with a glow-in-the-dark stone in the box when you bought the game box. It had like this glow-in-the-dark stone, and it was like, this is the Wishbringer stone. And I remember my brother and I like making it glow all the time and stuff. But the premise of these games were, you had to type in what you wanted to do. So you would type in look, and then it would give you a text description of what you saw in front of you. And then you would have to go like examine table, and then it'd be like on the table you see a recess where it looks like there's something in it, or this one plank is standing out or something. And then you would be like push plank, and it would be like that does nothing. And then you'd be like pull plank, and then it would be like you pull the plank up from the table, revealing a key underneath. And then you'd be like take key. And so like this was what you did. But I was a huge fan of like, number one, gaming. And this was like an interactive story. This kind of fell into the choose your own adventure era as well with books, where you'd be like, if you want to go down the tunnel, turn to page 28.
Oh, yeah.
But I've always loved sci-fi and fantasy and reading those books and losing myself in those worlds. And these text-based adventure games were basically an interactive story with challenges and puzzles and things that you had to do. And so part of the fun of that was like, you had to use your brain. You had to think. They had insanely complicated puzzles. Sometimes they had combat. Zork had a horror element. So I remember it was like, if your light ran out and you were in the dark, you'd get eaten.
No.
And I thought as a kid that was like terrifying and stuff. But these text-based adventures were one of the first glimpses into interactive gaming. And I remember playing like all of these, dude, all of them. The problem solving, the living the world in your head. It was like reading an awesome book and stuff. My grandpa, who would visit once a year, was super into these. And he had a big notebook of like things that he had discovered or steps to take in a puzzle and stuff. So I thought that was super cool that grandpa liked these games too. And yeah, dude, they were one of my first forays into gaming. And I still remember them to this day, about just having my mind blown that like people could be so creative and like create these stories that you could play.
Do you think that kind of contributed to your love of like Dungeons and Dragons?
Oh, absolutely.
Totally. There's like synonymous experiences.
That's what it sounds
I was going to
like.
say the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Using your imagination. You know what I mean? Like that. As kids, that's what we did, man. We played and we imaginated and stuff. And it's like, we didn't just get to have everything on a screen in front of us. And yes, absolutely. Like games like this absolutely led to my love of, like I said, fantasy, sci-fi, D&D, because it was like, if you could use your imagination, it just catapulted these things to another level, man.
That's awesome.
So
good
yeah,
pick.
text-based games.
Good pick.
Oh, old, super old, man. Like I said, there's a few people out there that are like, I remember that, but not many. All right, I'll tell you what, we got to take a quick break, and then John, we're going to come back to you right after this.
So
All right, we're back. We're still taking this trip down memory lane. John, what's another game from your childhood that stands out to you?
So I had a hard time picking which one of the series to really talk about here. So I think I'm going to go with the one that was sort of my introductory to this particular series, but most of my gaming was done on Sega Genesis, and most of it was done at my friend Spud's house, who I've talked about a few times during the show.
I love the name Spud for a friend, dude.
Yeah, dude, I just recently met up with him again. He turned into a rad adult, man.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, man. Him and I would spend literally all night long playing this game over and over and over again. We would challenge each other to like literally stay awake for 24 hours and play it all night long, to the chagrin of his parents and older brothers. But man, there was just something about it. It was like the first time that it really came to appreciate like graphics in a game. And I know that sounds kind of weird, like coming from like our modern era where we have games like Cyberpunk 2077 and Red Dead 2 that are like
Sega was 16-bit, man.
Yeah, baby.
Well, it was 16-bit, and like I just remember being able to appreciate the fact that like waterfalls moved in several different layers in the background, and the clouds moved independent of the landscapes and stuff. I really had a fond appreciation of it. And then of course the fact that him and I could play together, where you've got Sonic and Tails and you've got the split screen. It was tough, but not too tough. It was fast, but you could slow down. There were secrets to explore and things to level up. And then God mode. Do you guys recommend or remember God mode, where you could like unlock, spamming rings and bricks and stuff all over the levels, and Golden Sonic? I don't know, man. That was like peak peak platforming for me at the time.
I still I get anxiety just thinking about the water music where you're like underwater and it's like then you're like, oh god,
there's no more anxiety inducing music in the world, man.
For sure.
Look, let your kids or your wife listen to the Sonic drowning music without any context and just say, how does this make you feel?
Yeah.
And everybody's going to be like, I don't like it.
That's a good one. Solid pick.
I had a Sega Master System back in the day.
Wow.
And so like there were a few, well, that's not, the Genesis was better, man. But yeah, there were a few Sega games that I thought about bringing up. And then I was just like, other than Sonic and maybe Phantasy Star, they were all terrible, dude. I don't know.
No, they were
bro.
great, man.
Echo the Dolphin and Alex Kidd, like, come on.
Echo the Dolphin.
Oh, Alex Kidd's big thing was you can punch stuff, and I'm like, this guy sucks, man. Why am I not Mario? Because I bought this stupid Master System instead.
Echo was rad, bro.
Echo was chill, actually.
I am like personally offended that you didn't like
Nobody
Echo.
knows what the heck you were supposed to do in
Yes,
Echo.
you do. You swim and
you
know
jump. And you jump.
Yeah, that's fine. You know, it's interesting. I don't think I ever beat that game. I think there was one.
Beat it. Is there an end?
I think there was a level.
Jump?
Yeah, where I just absolutely got stuck. But,
oh man. And then you drowned because you were a dolphin and you had to breathe, man. Oh, goodness. All right, Ryan, what's up next for you, buddy?
I am going to go with one that everybody in the world is familiar with this character. And everybody probably did a lot of the same things I did with this character if you played this game. But I'm going with the OG 1996 Tomb Raider.
Oh,
dude,
nice.
Tomb Raider was fantastic.
That was one of those like, okay, I've upgraded. I don't have a Sega anymore. I got a PlayStation, man. I'm going big time. And you know, playing that game, you're a kid, you have all the time in the world, and you can do the stupidest things. Like when you can get to the manor, I'm sure everybody took the butler and walked him into the freezer and locked him in the freezer at the manor on the original Tomb Raider. Like everybody did that. It's just one of those games. Graphics were horrible if you look back on it, but it felt so
at the
good
time they were mind blowing.
Yeah, at the time,
they were pretty
like
amazing at the time.
you're like,
dude.
oh my gosh, these are the best, cubes and triangles ever. Look at it. So yeah, that's mine. That one I have a lot of very, very fond memories of the OG Tomb Raider.
The verticality in that game and the fact that you could climb and hang from ledges, I remember being like really impressive at the same time, because for the most part, we had gotten, maybe the occasional 3D platformer or something like that, but like Tomb Raider kind of took things to another level with the amount that you could interact with the environment and the actual levels that you were on at the same time. So,
Yep.
All right. So for me, you guys are going to see a natural evolution here because I went from text-based games to the incredible, the amazing, and I'm just going to group these Sierra games, dude. So,
That's a good one.
I was a kid. I'm playing these text-based adventures. I'm reading these things. I'm solving these problems. And then lo and behold, Sierra Games comes out with, people have heard of these, Heroes Quest, Space Quest, Leisure Suit Larry. They came out with dozens of these games, man. And I remember it was basically going from imagining these things to actually seeing them on screen. And one of my first experiences was a game called Heroes Quest, where you could be a wizard, a thief, or a fighter. I loved fantasy. I was getting into D&D. And then all of a sudden it was like, wait, I get to pick a class and decide how I want to play this game. There were puzzles that you had to solve or quests that you had to solve. You could approach them in multiple different ways. If you were a fighter, you could try to throw a boulder to knock this nest down out of a tree. If you were the thief, you were agile, so you could try climbing the tree. And if you were a wizard and you saved up enough money to buy the fetch spell, you could just cast that spell and pull the nest out of the tree and get the key that was hidden in the nest or something like that. But this just took it to another level. It was, like I said, it was the visual representation of these characters, these classes. This game had combat and monsters that you got to fight. Leisure Suit Larry was completely inappropriate for a child to play. I used to sneak playing it, and then it was like, this game's crazy. Like it was comedy, but it was just like, it just started to show you that gaming can be whatever anybody can imagine, and people were imagining so many different crazy things. What a time to be alive, man. But to see these representations, Sierra Games had the market just cornered insanely popular, insanely memorable. I love them.
If you were to give Leisure Suit Larry a ESRB rating, ERSB, whatever, rating these days, what do you think it would be?
PG-16.
PG-16.
Like
yeah.
they really didn't show very much. It was more just the subject, like the content. Like Leisure Suit Larry was just trying to get him some ladies, man.
Yeah.
And while it was very mature in its humor and the idea of what Larry was trying to do, they really weren't like over the level of like, too adult. Like, the subject matter was there, but they didn't really, I mean, maybe there was one game where it was like, somebody was half naked. And I remember like, Kid Josh was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I never had a childhood experience with those games, but they did a revival of that game of Leisure Suit Larry on the Dreamcast. And I remember going like, oh, wow, this is like, they had this like when I was growing up. Like, this seems very risque.
They had what like family friendly show, but like Atari had some straight up M-rated content. I only know this because I snuck around in my dad's closet and found some Atari games that a kid should not find. And this was kind of mind blowing that people were making adult themed games, and we were like, oh my gosh. But yeah, Leisure Suit Larry, definitely not intended for children, but probably not as mature as a lot of people think, or at least what I remember. Maybe it is, and somebody's going to be like, oh, Josh, you don't remember. But, it was, I mean, at the same time, gaming was always like a kid's thing. And so here somebody came along and said, no, this is meant for grownups. And grownups were like, this is great. Like, we love this. This is fun. So, all right, John, back to you, buddy. What do you got next?
So the next one for me, this actually kind of taps into what Ryan was talking about earlier when he mentioned the Batman game. I grew up with comic books. I still love comic books. I read 2 to 3 comic books a day, basically. And one of my very favorite comic book characters growing up was Spider-Man, is Spider-Man. And there was a game that was released on the Genesis that was a all-consuming addiction for me for a good period of time. It was released around Christmas, and it was based on a Spider-Man storyline that I was very invested in, and that is Spider-Man Maximum Carnage. Did you guys play that?
I remember this game, dude.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Dude, it was rad. It was one of the first games where you got to take the vantage point of a hero and a villain. So you got to be Spider-Man and you got to be Venom during the game. And between Spider-Man, Venom, who's really more kind of an anti-hero, and Carnage, who is one of the most psychotic, villainous antagonists in comic books, was just such a cool thing. And there was a great cast of characters, from like really prominent, well-known ones to like less well-known ones at the time. Like you had Cloak and Dagger and you had Mobius, and it was just such a fun, complete gaming experience for me. They really tapped into that kind of like comic book motif where like they had text bubbles and they had, the sound effects like bursting out, like the pow and boom when you're punching, kicking people. The web swinging was a lot of fun. Or, it's probably quite dated. I have went back and played some of these games and they're like unplayable for me now. But at the time, it was absolute peak gaming.
This was the era of like the street brawler, like Double Dragon, Streets of Rage.
Yep.
I mean,
Teenage
the beat 'em ups.
Turtles.
Side-scrolling beat 'em ups. Turtles was another one. I mean, these games were all, exactly the same in gameplay. It was just, did you want to be a Ninja Turtle? Did you want to be Spider-Man? Did you want to be, this Hagar from Streets of Rage or something?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, but what an era, man. These games were all fantastic, and they were so fun to play with a friend too. What a good time, man. Yeah. I actually have Double Dragon on my like extended list. I'm not going to bring it up because, time-wise, but that
I had Streets of Rage on mine. Streets of Rage was in my,
exactly. So, all right, Ryan, what's up next for you?
All right. Well, the Pokemon fans are going to be happy with this one because I am going to go with Pokemon Yellow for Game Boy. This one, I played the originals, but this was such a step up for me because you got, you had Pikachu following you around, and it was like the coolest thing ever. He's cruising with you, and you're mobile gaming. I can play this game now anywhere, and it was just something that was so, to me as a child, revolutionary, to where I don't have to be at home. I can be drugged to the store with mom and dad or whatever, and I can park it somewhere and just sit and play Pokemon, so I have more hours than I could ever remember of just battling in, an old Macy's or at, the church kids area or wherever, all over the town. I was playing this dang game. And so it stuck with me big time.
All right. I got to bring this up, man. Okay. All right. So you mentioned having the Game Boy, right? And
Yes.
Your parents would bring you, bro, back in our day, if you had something that kept you busy, our parents were 100% for that.
Yeah.
Like, Ryan, you want to sit in the car in 115 and play your Game Boy while we go shopping? Okay, we'll be back in an hour. And then recently, like, iPads come out and parents are like, oh, no, we got to limit this game time, like 1 hour a day. We can't fry your brain. Parents back in the 80s and 90s were like, you play as much as you want as long as you leave us alone.
Get away.
As long as you're not bothering us, like, have a great time, man. It's just so funny because that made me think of that, like, oh, we got to limit screen time now, guys. Like,
or where they say, don't sit too close to the TV, and then now they do VR and it's just planted to your face.
Yeah, I have a 45-inch screen inches from my face right now.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I don't know why that made me chuckle, but it was back then. It was like parents were like, okay, good. This is keeping them busy, Yeah, I never got into Pokemon, but like I know people absolutely love it. The turn-based stuff. I imagine there's millions of like childhood memories revolved around playing the Pokemon games.
The only turn-based I ever loved.
Yeah.
Did you know that Pokemon is the highest selling IP of all time? Like, even compared to like Disney and like the Mickey and Friends, like if you compare it against Mickey and Friends or Ninja Turtles or Warner Brothers or whatever, Pokemon is the highest selling IP of all time.
I believe it. I mean, my kids are probably responsible for 10% of their.
When I heard it beat Mickey Mouse, I was blown away, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's worldwide, man. And like I said, my kids, they don't even play the game. They just spend money on cards and that's it. They hoard them.
There's a lot of people
goblins,
like that.
Man.
If you think about it though, like I used to collect baseball cards and like you didn't necessarily have to like, you don't play with them. Like it's just kind of cool to have the card.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's childhood gambling is what it is. So
I love it.
All right. This is niche, guys, but man, if these games didn't just spawn my absolute love of turn-based games, tactics, and again, Dungeons and Dragons type games, role-playing games. I mean, these were one of my first forays into role-playing games. I'm going to call them the SSI Gold Box games because older people like myself will know exactly what those are. These were straight up D&D interpretations of video games. They spawned from the world of Dragonlance. The most popular ones are Pools of Radiance, Curse of the Azure Bonds, and Pools of Darkness. These pulled straight out of Dungeons and Dragons. You started off as a little level 1 guy. You built your party. You built your party the way you wanted. So it's like, do I want a ranger and a rogue and a fighter and a cleric? They were the most purest forms of Dungeons and Dragons in video game form. The really awesome part about these were you had first person exploration. So you actually would step in this grid and then you could turn and look around and you'd see a door and you could open the door and go in. And then when you got into combat, it would go into a like third person grid type thing, top down view to where you could move your characters around and stuff like that. I cannot tell you guys how much I freaking loved the ability to play Dungeons and Dragons in a video game. It was one of the first, or at least my first forays into like a true role-playing game where you started to get your weapons got better, your armor got better, you got more spells, your characters got stronger. And the beauty in these games is that they were one of the first examples where you could actually save your character and then import it into the next game.
That's pretty rad. Yeah.
If you played through Pools of Radiance with your little level 1 characters, by the end of that, they were level 6 and they were getting stronger. And then if you played Curse of the Azure Bonds, it would let you save your guys and import them. And so you got to play through all of these games with the characters that you had built up. In Pools of Darkness, you're fighting, Queen Tachyssus and like, these gods. and stuff. And it was like your characters were super strong and you're fighting dragons. And as a D&D nerd, it was like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever, man. And to this day, I credit my love of RPGs and turn-based combat to these games, man. They were not very good looking, but at the time it was like you got to see your characters and they were little sprites and they had different colors and, that kind of thing. But the tactical combat, the exploration being first person, the progression, I mean, all these things that Josh loves, these games had it all. And it's literally carried through my entire life to where you give me a game like this, I'm going to like it right away, man.
They molded your gaming.
Baldur's Gate 3 is the perfect example of going from, they still have the heart of those games, like legitimately.
Yeah.
It is the most incredible evolution to see the old SSI Gold Box games and then have Baldur's Gate 3 being like the most modern, futuristic version of these things. But man, it's like kid Josh and adult Josh just got to meet and have my favorite style of game just be current, man. I freaking love those things so much, dude. So, all right, we're running long. Let's do one more, guys. John, what you got? What's one more for you?
It's funny that you mentioned that because my next pick is kind of the exact same thing for me, but for tabletop wargaming. It's a niche Sega Genesis game called Herzog Zwei. Or Herzog, yeah.
I've heard you mention this before.
Yeah, and so it is I believe it is the first real-time strategy game. It is like the prototype from which StarCraft and the original Warcraft games were sort of built on. But it gave you this sort of system where you acquired bases and you built resource engines and tanks and infantry that had different like strengths and weaknesses and cost to build and time to build and stuff like that. That lended itself into a lifelong love of tabletop wargaming where you're like building an army to combat another army and pitting strengths and weaknesses against one another. It is a rad game. It is one of the only ones of these retro games that we're talking about today, these nostalgic picks, that I think still holds up. It was, it's pixel gaming at this point. Like anybody playing it would chalk this up to like a very retro experience, but it still plays pretty smooth if you can find a good controller to play it with.
It almost looks like it's like an RTS in a way. It's the top down, like, is it straight up an RTS? Was the combat the same too? Like as a
it is a real-time strategy game.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean,
it is the first real-time strategy game.
If this doesn't have the picture perfect, like pixel, like Sega Genesis type graphics, man, like you can tell the second you look at this game where it's like, yep, that's a Genesis game.
Yeah.
Super saturated colors, like in pixels. Oh man. Yeah. I get that, man. I mean, real-time strategy, when it first came out, was a brand new genre, and nobody had done anything like it.
It was my favorite genre for a long time. I couldn't get enough of it. Like, again, StarCraft, Warcraft.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Dude,
Command and Conquer, man. The Command and Conquer games were awesome. They ate up a lot of my time as a child, and were some of my very last PC gaming experiences until very recently.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Ryan, one last one for you, buddy. What comes to mind? If we don't hear Metal Gear Solid reference on this show, I'm going to be amazed. So.
You know your boys got to go back to the well for the cream of the crop, the top tier ones. I'm going with Metal Gear Solid 2. It for me, I still remember because you guys talked about leaps and steps forward and types of games or graphics or anything like that. To me, this is what I vividly remember as thinking, we made it. Guys, we made it. Graphics are the best they'll ever be. You start this game and you're in this like dark rainy land and you have a poncho and you jump off this bridge onto this tanker and I just remember Snake like looking to the side and the rain's falling and I was just like, this is just a masterpiece. This is the best looking thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I was so blown away as a kid and it still sits with me, but I that game it holds the biggest place in my heart. I played it so many times, so many hours, and I still love it. And it still, in my opinion, holds up pretty well. But yeah, that's a childhood core memory is Metal Gear Solid 2. It's a solid game too.
we're probably gonna get a remake. If Solid Metal Gear
Delta?
Solid Delta Snake Eater does well,
Dude, I'd buy it.
Getting a remake.
Take
of
my
that,
money.
man.
They
Here's
totally should
$100.
remake it. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, Ryan. That is one of those games that stands out, and Tomb Raider, which we talked about earlier, that really opened up what gaming could be. As Josh mentioned earlier in the show, like in the 16-bit era, you had like a few general categories of what games were. You had like a platformer, you had a beat 'em up, you had a shoot 'em up, which was beat 'em up with guns. Yeah, Metroidvania, which is kind of just a combination of the two, and then like some sports games and fighting games, and that's it. When you started seeing games like Metal Gear come out, where it's like there's stealth, there's combat, there's platforming, there's like dialogue. I mean, there was just so many facets to the game that it really opened up and evolved what gaming was.
Yeah. And that's just Kojima. He was always like cutting edge, of graphics and just of pushing the boundaries. He still is, with Death Stranding 2 now and stuff. So yeah, that one is just like an all-timer.
Yeah, I knew. I was like, bro, if Ryan doesn't mention a Metal Gear game, but I mean, this is true. Like we talk about some of these games because they were our childhood, man. Like these are the memories that we've taken with us over the decades of gaming and stuff. And it's like, sure, like some of my favorite games of all time are absolutely modern games, but they don't have that like nostalgia factor either, man. So. Yep. All right, last one for me, boys. People have heard me talk about this one. The X-Wing TIE Fighter games were absolutely on another level. Number one, is huge fan of Star Wars. The ability to actually pilot an X-Wing or an A-Wing or a TIE Fighter or a TIE Interceptor. Oh my goodness, dude. Like, you had to have an actual joystick to play these things on any like level of competency. They were brutally hard. You would fail your missions multiple times. But the feeling of dogfighting in an X-Wing against a horde of TIE fighters, or the first time taking on a Star Destroyer and realizing like this was actually the mission, was incredible to me. I cannot tell you how much I loved these games. I played them an insane amount of hours. This franchise did really, really well because they had, X-Wing, and then they had X-Wing Alliance maybe, and then they had TIE Fighter, and then they had X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. I mean, they just kept going, and every one of them was a little bit better. They were just incredible games, man. I wish I could experience that again.
And that was probably all within like 2 years. They didn't take like 10 years to make a game.
They did not take 5 years to develop these games, man. But yeah, the X-Wing TIE Fighter games were some of my favorites of all time. It also is, again, one of those things that made me insanely stubborn, to where it was like, I am going to beat this mission. I don't care if I fail 500 times. I'm going to beat it. And that stayed with me my whole life, man.
Conditioned you for Elden Ring.
Yeah, it did. But it was the same, like that just, brain dopamine hit of like beating this challenge and this difficult level and accomplishing this thing. My goodness, man. I freaking love those games. And then Star Wars Squadrons comes out, and I think it's going to be this like throwback, and it was okay, but it just wasn't the same. And
I agree, man. I was really let down. I had the same level of enthusiasm you did. The Starfighters are my favorite part of Star Wars, honestly. The ships are my favorite part of Star Wars. Yep. When I think about like, man, I would love to be in Star Wars, it's like I want to fly Starfighters.
Dude, the galactic battles like Return of the Jedi, when they're just peak. All those cruisers and Star Destroyers and X-Wings and TIE Fighters, it doesn't get better than that, man.
I agree.
I'll take that over the lightsaber duels any day.
Same.
Yeah.
And one of the best audio things too, like the TIE Fighter.
The screaming of like TIE engine. Yeah. Oh, man. All right, guys, I'll tell you what. We got like 1 minute. Let's do some quick fire honorable mentions. We don't have to get into them, but is there anything else on your list that you got to throw out there?
Yeah, for me, it's I mentioned Streets of Rage, which I got
Streets of Rage, dude.
My Sega Genesis came with Streets of Rage 2, and I kind of got a Sega late in the game, but that was a real big one for me. I put in countless hours because we couldn't afford to get games all that often, so I played the crap out of that. And then X-Men versus Street Fighter, like that first crossover in the arcades. So good, man. And it's produced so many awesome Marvel and Capcom crossovers since then.
Yeah.
Yep.
What about you, Ryan?
I got Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Never.
Oh,
played it. I know
cool.
people
That's a
love
cool
it.
pick.
I've never played it. Dude.
That's you never played Roller Coaster Tycoon? Oh,
Never.
dude.
I didn't like sim games, dude. I figured it out very early that I didn't like sim games.
They all came like with preset like coasters and stuff, but you could also design your own. So you could just make the most ridiculous things, but if you made it too crazy, then nobody would ride it because they were scared. It was so awesome to play that game back in the day. And then old school NBA Jam.
Oh,
that's a banger.
NBA Jam was awesome, dude.
He's
Oh
on
my
fire.
Goodness. Yeah. Boom, shakalaka.
Yep.
Yeah, those are great.
The announcer back then.
Yep.
For me, the Might and Magic series, I am not talking about Heroes of Might and Magic, which the franchise kind of switched over to. I'm talking about the original Might and Magic games. These, again, were first-person exploration dungeon crawler type games. Made a party, progressed from level 1 characters up to like you're really strong. Street Fighter 2 was I played that game more than just about any other game for years. Double Dragon we talked about. Final Fantasy 7 was on my list of like childhood memories because at the time it was one of the greatest games ever made.
Also one of the most overrated.
And then a fun, I still love this, is Punch-Out to me. I don't know why, but the characters, the gameplay in Punch-Out, the difficulty level, it just fit everything that, younger Josh wanted. So we want to hear from you. We want to know what your childhood memory games are. So if you're listening to this on Spotify, scroll down a little bit. There's a comment section that you can leave a comment. If you would like to have a further discussion on this, join our Discord server. We can't wait to hear what games come to mind for people when they think about these childhood memories. And no matter your age, I don't care if you're 14, you've got a memory of playing some game at some point.
If your game's past 2005, instant ban.
No, don't listen to Ryan. It's probably Minecraft if I had to guess, if anybody's under the age of like 20. But
that's Aces, I know.
Or
that's
Minecraft or Fortnite, right?
Yep.
But we want to hear. So leave us a comment. We see and read every single one of those. Come join our community. Let's talk about how fun these things are. Don't miss out on another community night. These things are freaking a blast, dude. I mean, yes, they actually do exist. We had 20 people playing Halo Infinite last night. Just cry laughing and having a good time, man. Like,
sorry I ran you over, Pyro.
Yeah. And if you enjoy this podcast, please remember to rate our show 5 stars, write us a review so that people that are looking for a good podcast know to check this one out and hopefully stick around as well. If you want to support the show, there is a link in the episode description. Takes about 2 to 3 minutes to sign up. Goes a super long way to helping out the show, and you can be awesome and get a shout out like Bengalicious did at the beginning too.
We're dancing at John's disco.
I like this disco look.
Segue into just so everybody knows, we do have video now, so you can see John's light disco ball here you got going on.
All right, that's gonna do it for this one, everybody. Until next time, happy gaming.
See ya.
Toodly doodly.